We're going to start function 2, and function 2 is going to start with a lesson, and we're going to call them lesson 1, which is an introduction to slope. And slope is a idea that we use to describe a linear line. It's used in the real world a lot. You can think about the slope of your roof, the slope of a ramp, lots and lots of different places that we use the idea of slope. So it's kind of like the amount of increase or decrease a straight line has. So we're going to start right away with some vocabulary words here. And we're going to start with the idea of the unit rate. So unit rate is something you've learned probably back in 6th grade. You can think of it as a ratio often used to compare different quantities. So like miles per hour, costs per item, how far miles you can go per gallon. So anything that you go back to unit rates and you think about some of those items you compare, maybe the price per can, lots of different things that we look at when we talk about unit rate. Another way to describe unit rate is as I introduced, is we're going to use this word slope. Okay, so a unit rate is seen as a slope. And if you think about using a unit rate, you're going to think of it as this ratio, since a unit rate is a ratio, of the change of the dependent variable over the change in the independent variable. Okay, so the dependent variable, if you remember, if you look at a graph real quick, here is your dependent variable. It's on the y-axis. And then your independent variable is on your x-axis. So we're going to look at, let me finish this here. We're going to look at the ratio of how much the independent variable is changing over how much the independent variable is changing. In other words, how much is it changing on the y-axis over how much is it changing on the x-axis. And there's 3 different types of slopes when we start looking at them. A positive slope is when the slope increases from left to right. So just like you read from left to right, you do the same thing when you read graphs. So because this graph is increasing, because this is my left side to my right side, so think of it like if that's the slope of a hill, you're going to go up that hill. So this is a positive slope. So as we look at this graph from left to right, so if you think about standing up here and you're looking at going down this line or down this slope, that is a going decreasing, or we know as a negative slope. So it's decreasing from left to right. This slope, if you're starting over here, and if you're looking, notice that you don't see any rise or fall. It's a flat line. Okay, so we call this a zero slope. I always tease that this is the kind of slope that I like to ski on. No rise, no fall. It's just a straight cross-country ski. And this one, when it's straight up and down, if you think about this, that would be a really crazy slope to ski down, but that is known as an undefined slope. Now, I apologize right now for the messy writing, but I lost my pen, so I have to do it by my fingers. Next thing is just to identify it. So if you want to pause the video for a second and see if you can identify line A, B, C, and D, and then check back to see if I get those same answers. So line A is this line right here. Again, this is, if you're going from the left, looking to the right, you're thinking about a hill, that would have zero slope. It's just flat. So this is a zero slope. If you look at line B, from left to right, I always start left. So if I'm at this part and of hill and I look at my slope, I am definitely going down. So that is a negative slope. If I look at line C, and this one really doesn't have a left or right, but anything that's vertically up and down, It's an undefined. Personally, if I think about if I was skiing that and I was up there and I'm looking down, that was my slope, that would be a totally undefined a feeling. On our last one here, line D, if you're starting here on the left and you look at your hill, that definitely would be an uphill. So that is a positive slope. Strategy to remember, some people really get confused on which one is your undefined slope and which one's your zero slope. I will teach you later mathematically why one's undefined and one's zero, but one way I remember is that since undefined starts with a U, the undefined slope is the slope that goes up and down, and up starts with U. So if that helps you, that's a strategy to help you understand it. Okay, now we're going to, once you kind of understand slope, so slope is just the how much a line or a straight line increases or how much a straight line decreases, or as you saw, you can have zero slope. We're going to be able to look at finding the slope from a graph. So now that I kind of understand what slope is, how do I find it? And what kind of ratio number can I give to that? So it says to find the value of a slope from a graph, we want a ratio to compare the vertical change, kind of like I just taught you when we're looking at dependent. You're going to look at the dependent, I'll just put D, over the independent. Remember, this is dependent, this is your independent. So that ratio is dependent over independent, or we know it as the vertical change. So this is vertical. I'll write this here. The vertical change over, and that's definitely, the independent is horizontal. So that's one way to look at it. So I've given you a couple of different ideas of how to write that ratio: dependent over independent, vertical change over horizontal change. Or you can write it as rise over run. If you can't read my writing, it's right over here. So rise, meaning up and down, how much up or down you go, and run, kind of think about like you're running. You're going to go left. Actually, technically, you're going to go right. So the first thing you're going to do here, now that we kind of know our setup of our ratios, and again, it's dependent over independent, vertical change over horizontal change, or rise over run, doesn't matter which way in your brain it makes more sense to you. You're still going to do the same thing. It still gives you the same answers. So the first thing you need to do is find 2 points on the line. And then you're going to count and set up a ratio of the vertical change to the horizontal change. And I call that a slope triangle. And I'll show you that in a second. Always remember to simplify, which in other words would be simplifying your fraction to lowest terms or your ratio to lowest terms when possible. And always remember to check your sign. So in other words, if it's a positive slope, so it's increasing from left to right, that means you're going to have a positive value. If it's a negative slope, then the ratio is going to be negative. So we're going to go through some examples here to make sure you understand. So this first one here, they've already picked the points for you. If you want to pick other points, that's up to you, but I'm just going to pick the points they are. So you're going to look at its, remember, vertical change or its rise. So here's its vertical change, known as the rise, and this is its horizontal change, known as the run. So this is your run, and this is your rise. Or the vertical up and down change over the horizontal. So now you just count and make sure you look at the box, make sure that each box in this case is worth 1, so I can count by ones. So here the rise is 1, and the run is 1, 2, 3, 4. So your run is 4. So the ratio is your rise over your run, or your vertical change. It changed by increasing by 1 unit, and the run is 4. So that's your slope. So the slope of this is a positive 1/4. Okay, this one doesn't have points, so we got to pick 2, and it doesn't matter which 2. I usually like to pick the ones right away. So I have a point here. You got to pick points that actually cross nicely. So this next point isn't crossing nicely, which I mean is that you could give it whole number coordinates. So this one is 0, 7. This one is 1, maybe 6.5. But I can tell this one right here would be 2, 6. So that would be a great 2 points to pick. So then you're going to go down. This case, this is my vertical or my rise, and this is my run. So this is called a slope triangle because, as you notice, it makes a slope. So since you heard me say down, you're going to notice that since you go down on your rise, that's going to be a -1, and then count your run, 1, 2. So your slope on this one is -1, 2. Okay, next one. Pick 2 points. I'll just pick the one here because that looks like that's 2, 9. And I'll just pick the one at the beginning, 0, 0. That one's easy. Okay, so I just like to make my slope triangle. So here's my vertical change, my horizontal change. Now this one you got to be careful with because actually each box is worth something different than 1. So each box is worth 3. So again, look carefully at this one. This vertical change is 3, 6, 9. So this is a vertical change of 9. I went up, so it's positive. And then my run, if I look at the bottom quickly, it goes by 1 still. So this would be 1, 2. So my ratio of my vertical change over my horizontal change is 9/2. Or if you like to think of it as your rise is 9 and your run is 2. So it's a positive 9/2. And you can't reduce that because 9 does not come out and an even amount with no remainders. 6 here, find 2 points. Again, they're this time we're going to go into 4 quadrants. It doesn't matter which 2 quadrants you pick in. I'm going to push, let's go here at 0, 0, looks like a nice point. And then it looks nice here at 3, 4. Again, you could pick 2 other points. You could pick this point and that point. I try to find 2 points that are close together. That usually means I don't have to simplify a lot, if any. So my slope triangle, I'm going to do my vertical change or my rise over my run. Again, rise over run. My rise, I'm going up. It's by ones. I look quickly. 1, 2, 3, 4. And my run is 1, 2, 3. Oops. So I write my ratio as 4 of my vertical change over my horizontal change of 3, and I can't reduce 4/3. This one shouldn't take very long to notice. Notice it's straight up and down. That helps you up. This one's undefined. There's nothing mathematically. I can show you quickly why it's undefined. So if you do pick 2 points, we'll pick this one and this one. So if you think about a rise, so we'll say a rise is 1 here. Make the ratio over here. The run would be 0. Well, if you check your calculator right now, or your calculator on your phone, and you take 1 divided by 0, your calculator is either going to say undefined or an error. Because if you think about this mathematically, if you have 1 of something, so let's say 1 cookie, and you're trying to put it into 0 groups, that just mathematically makes no sense. So that's why the slope is undefined. It doesn't mathematically make any sense. Okay, and the last one to practice with me, and then you'll practice on your own on iExcel. Let's go. It looks like it crosses at, let's say it crosses here at -2, 4, and it crosses, let's say right away here. Okay, so we're going to do rise over run. So rise, notice I'm going down. That tells you this is a negative slope, plus I can see it's negative. It's going down. That's a hill. You're going totally down if you're going left to right. And then you run. Now careful in this one because the slope is, or the axis is not going by ones here on the vertical. So it starts here at 2. It went up to 4. So that's a vertical change of 2. And down here, it starts at -2. Notice I kind of go back to my axes to see. And it goes over to -1. Well, that's a run of 1. So this is -2 because you went down over 1, and that can't be reduced. Sometimes algebraically, we might just write, since -2 over 1 does equal -2, we will write -2. I hope this helps. Best of luck on making or finding your own slopes on your iExcel lesson.